And then I had a coming of being moment probably about a month ago where I was like, holy crap, like these metrics don't matter. The amount of followers that I have doesn't measure the quality of the content that I'm putting out. The amount of followers that I have doesn't define my profile and my social media presence. I'm just going to keep producing the things that I want to post day in and day out. If people like it and resonate it with it, they can stick around. If they don't, they're free to unfollow me too. And having that switch of mindset, I think actually made me even more successful and grow even more because I was no longer pulling my punches.
We all have a beautifully unique story to tell, but being able to do so with vulnerability and strength comes with a lot of challenges along the way. Tom has managed to do just that, and in this episode, we dive deep into digital, mental, and physical health. We also discuss how Twitter is one of the most healthy social media platforms we have ever been a part of. It was a beautifully free-flowing conversation, and I hope you enjoy.
So my name is Tom, otherwise known as the Brain Battery on social media, and hopefully most of the people listening to this podcast have some sort of familiarity with me, and hopefully they like me too. But for my day job, I am an associate director of strategic partnerships at a venture capital firm, which is a stark contrast to the things that I talk about online. Online, I really like to teach people about health, about wellness as it pertains to physical health as well as mental health. And then I also like to teach clinically backed strategies in order to make people the most optimized version of themselves.
Wow, that is super interesting. Why are you so interested in this, Tom? Where did this start?
So the main reason why I started to get so interested into health and wellness was primarily because I had always been a very active individual throughout my entire life. I did powerlifting competitions. I wrestled in high school. I boxed for my college's boxing team. And all of that kind of added to up at Tom the Fitness Enthusiast, which was probably when I was anywhere from like 21 to 22 years old. Then, for anyone who's familiar with my personal story, I had that car accident that caused me to have to get emergency surgery on my back. That is what really deep dived me into the clinical aspect of health and wellness, and also made my relationship with health and wellness much more positive versus when I was always trying to be bigger and faster and stronger. It was a little bit more toxic. So when I had the opportunity to really take a step back, I didn't have to work during my surgical recovery. I didn't have the ability to work out during my surgical recovery. I really looked inward and I tried to decide what mattered most to me. And what mattered most to me at that time, and what has continually mattered to me, is feeling the best that I possibly can through the use of clinical studies that teach people and showcase clinically that they can make people feel as good as they possibly can. I started reading all these clinical studies, and I must have spent anywhere from like 400 to 500 hours, maybe even more, reading clinical trials.
That is
and
crazy.
As I've started implementing all of these strategies, I just felt better and better and better. And I thought to myself, I'm like, wow, if I can feel this good after having back surgery on a mental and physical level, just imagine how good I would have felt prior to this back surgery if I started implementing these strategies. That was when I formulated the Brain Battery Twitter page just as a passion project, man, as something to just share the learnings that I learned as I was recovering. And then I really started to strike a chord with an audience, and my page really started to grow. And within 2 months, I think I'm sitting on like 1,640 followers within, just about a 2-month time period. So as far as I understand, that's relatively impressive growth for the Twitter platform. And I'm just happy that I'm able to share my message.
Completely agree. And I've really been enjoying your writings, specifically because...
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you.
You're welcome, man. My girlfriend 3 years ago, she hit her head and she had a concussion. And ever since then, well, our life has changed till this day, and it's very interesting that like when these events happen in your life, like you're forced to, fix it yourself, I guess you can say. Like you got to find different ways, and your mind just naturally like flows to finding different solutions. What were some of the things that you first learned that really helped you when you said that you were researching clinical trials that were improving your life. What were some of those things?
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I want to say I'm sorry to hear about what happened to your girlfriend. I hope that she's doing better now. I would say that some of the first things that happened, or some of the first things that I read when I was going into my clinical trials, was actually around supplementation, which I don't necessarily talk a lot about on my page for a particular reason, because supplementation can affect everybody differently. And I don't want to pretend that I'm a doctor or an expert. And if people are taking certain medications, supplementation can knowingly interact with those medications. But I digress. I really started to get into the clinical trials associated with anti-inflammation. From everything that I have read, or nearly everything that I read, 90 to 95% of all pain and suffering and even sickness that human beings have occur to them is through the mechanism of inflammation. When you're sick, inflammatory cytokines are what trigger your immune system. When you're in pain, it's inflammation at the site of the pain that actually triggers the pain. And it's always this cycle and this feedback loop of inflammation, inflammation, inflammation. What I realized that through the standard American diet, and even the diet that many people partake in all around the world, there's always an outbalance of pro-inflammatory things that you're putting into your body versus anti-inflammatory things that you're putting into your body. That was one of the first trials that I had read. And it was a balance, if I'm remembering correctly, it was a balance between omega-3 fatty acids, which are like your fish oils that are anti-inflammatory, and then omega-6 fatty acids, which are hyper-inflammatory to the body. And something like, again, I'm going to be misquoting statistics here, and I apologize about that, but probably like 85 to 90% of people have an outbalance of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, causing that feedback loop of inflammation to happen. When I started to implement omega-3s into my diet, when I started to take out inflammatory foods and introduce anti-inflammatory foods into my body, I started to feel amazing. I had all this energy that I didn't know what to do with. I cut down my caffeine intake to 1 cup of coffee a day. I was waking up and I didn't feel groggy and miserable. And I was like, holy crap, like this could be something here. So then I went down the rabbit hole of research and optimization. And then that's what finally led me to, believe it or not, man, I'm sitting in this chair with you, speaking to you the way that I am right now. And I'm only 5 months out from my surgery.
Wait, what? Sir,
Yes,
in my head, when you talk about it, I thought it was a
surgery.
couple of years ago.
No, sir. No, sir. I had the surgery September 1st of 2022.
Wow. And what does your diet look like now?
This may be slightly controversial, but I'm going to say it anyway. My diet consists mainly of meat. So I eat, I would say, 80% of my calories from some sort of meat, be that fish, steak, chicken, beef, lamb, bison. And then I would say the other 20% comes from dairy and fruit. I do eat vegetables every now and again. I'm not a proponent of like, don't eat vegetables or anything like that. I'm also, maybe we could speak about this a little bit later, but I'm not really big into getting into the politics of different dietary schools of thought, because I'm of the belief that different dietary schools of thought are looking at the wrong enemy. People that have vegan diets see their quote unquote natural opposition as people who eat meat. People who eat meat regularly see their natural opposition as people who eat only vegetables and fruit. However, I think that consenting adults should be able to eat whatever they want, period. If someone feels good on a vegan diet, keep doing it. If somebody feels good on a carnivore diet, keep doing it. But the real enemy, and I recently just dropped a thread about this, the real enemy is these artificial and processed food companies. Because there is nobody that can make the argument that that stuff is good for you. So as long as you're doing a dietary school of thought that makes you feel good and you're eliminating these pro-inflammatory foods from your diet, like these processed foods, hyper-processed foods, and man-made foods, keep doing it. So I'm sorry if I went off on a little bit of a tangent there, but that's how I feel about the dietary conversation.
Oh yeah, man, that's incredibly interesting. And just full disclosure here, I am vegetarian, so that is happening there.
And that's
But
awesome. I'm happy.
I think do whatever works best for you, and don't be so
Precisely.
tied down to one specific diet. You know, try things, implement different things. I've been coming back to New Zealand here, and I've been thinking about introducing some more meat to my diet, specifically hunted meat, because I'm I first became vegetarian a couple of years ago, maybe 5 or so, and the change was like overnight for me. And this could be interesting, and you just
Oh
touched
well.
on it, is that I don't exactly know if it was the increase in like just eating like vegetables, and occasionally I do eat fish here and there, so I'm not completely a vegetarian. But I think because
We won't
after I
count it,
made
man.
this switch, my mind was quicker. I'm in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu very heavily, so I've rolled around with a couple of you wrestlers, and I know what it feels like. But I was quicker, my mind was faster, my body was faster, and I do think that most of it actually was just cutting out all of the shit that I was eating before, and then just going to like a
Bingo.
more um, whole foods based diet. So I'm interested to also tinker around with a couple of different meat options. Are you eating just like, does it matter what cuts of meat that you eat? Or like, for example, like, are you eating like just steaks? Or are you also eating like liver and like heart and all this other cuts of meat like that?
Yeah, I eat all different types. I don't like to only eat one specific meat because I believe that the micro as well as macronutrient makeups of all meats are slightly different. I do try to incorporate liver in one way, shape, or form into my diet almost every single day, if not every single day, because it's one of the most nutrient dense meats, if not one of the most nutrient dense substances on the entire planet. I also regularly
Wow.
eat eggs. Eggs are fantastic, super easy to absorb, easy to digest, packed full of vitamins and nutrients. However, I am slightly partial to eating beef as opposed to chicken or turkey or something along those lines, some sort of poultry, just because one, I feel like beef tastes better, and two, when you're getting your primary calorie source from meat, you need to have fattier cuts in order to have more calories. If I tried to eat only chicken, I would have to eat like something like 2 or 3 pounds of chicken a day. And like from an economics point of view and just an overall like taste point of view, like I do not want to do that. You know, I'm no longer trying to be a bodybuilder. I'm no longer trying to do all these crazy things. I'm just trying to eat. I'm just trying to feel good. And I'm just trying to live my life.
That's beautiful. And you're talking earlier about inflammation. When I think about inflammation, I think about muscle pain specifically. Is there any other type of inflammation that is caused?
Oh yeah, there's so many different types of inflammation that are caused throughout the body, and the inflammation in and of itself is a very powerful mechanism from the body because it tells you where something is going wrong. So, like you just said, muscle inflammation. Let's say that you were recently benching really heavy and you injured your rotator cuff. You would feel the pain at the site of the injury because that is where your body is rushing blood, it's rushing nutrients, and it triggered that inflammatory process, excuse me, in order to bring everything there. So inflammation certainly has its, I guess you could say, its uses within the body, right, to act as a messenger. The problem is when this messenger is constantly being flashed, right? You're constantly under a state of hyperinflammation. Then your body doesn't even really know where to send things because you're eating all this crap, for lack of a professional phrase. You know, your body gets a signal from its gut microbiome that it's like, what did you just ingest? Like, I have no idea how to even digest this. So inflammation signal, right? Sometimes you can get headaches from eating those type of things too, because your brain, you get dehydrated and you're getting all different types of inflammation signals all over the body. So it's not necessarily getting rid of the inflammation. It's controlling it. And the best way to control inflammation is not taking any sort of supplement. The best way to control inflammation is removing those inflammatory things from your environment.
Wow. I see that so much nowadays, like especially even in New Zealand. It was shocking to me when I came here. The supermarkets are so big compared to the Netherlands, and there's so many options. It's so hard to just get through the supermarket without like picking those foods. Like, oh, they're so good though. The mind,
Yeah,
oh
dude, I
man,
know exactly what
I
you
love them
mean.
so much.
You know, I don't like to pretend that I don't like to pretend that I'm perfect. You know, there's times where I am a little bit lax on my diet, like, you know, during the holidays, or if I'm going out with my girlfriend, you know, I want to be able to enjoy life, and I have the ability to. It's the problem when you make things chronic, when you're constantly eating these things that are bad for you. I don't want to be the person who raises the red flag and says, never enjoy your diet. You can only eat the most plain foods in the entire world. If that's the way that it works for you, and that's someone that I was for a very long time, but now I'm not afraid of having a few things here and there. Again, the biggest issue is when it becomes chronic consumption, when you fall victim to food addiction, which is another thread that I just recently written. That's when you start getting these really big problems. You start getting things like type 2 diabetes, which can cause massive harm and increase your all-cause mortality by something like 60 or 70%.
That's crazy stuff. How does all of this affect your mind? Eating a bad diet.
It can really affect your mind. So there's an entire, I don't even want to say concept. There's an entire proven theory that your gut-brain axis is what essentially controls your entire human spirit, being, whatever you personally believe in, or you want to put the scientific terms towards. If your gut microbiome is out of whack, there is a tremendously higher likelihood that you will experience some sort of mental illness. What you eat and what you consume is going to manifest in things like anxiety. It's going to manifest in things like depression. It's going to manifest in things like OCD. And the reason for this is, again, because the gut microbiome and the brain are so heavily intertwined. And that's actually something that I plan on writing a thread about in the very near future, is that gut-brain axis and how intertwined those things are. There was a time where I was clinically diagnosed with both severe anxiety and severe depression. And that was when I was going through all of the pain that I had associated prior to my back surgery. One thing that I realized was, even when I was out of the pain, I was still feeling incredibly anxious and incredibly depressed. And then I realized, when I was going through all that pain prior to my back surgery, my diet was absolutely terrible. I wanted to be an emotional eater. Every time I felt like crap, I wanted to somehow fix that with the dopamine associated with eating something sweet, or the dopamine associated with eating a very good tasting meal. Once I readjusted and fixed my diet, I was able to drop the 3 different mental health medications that I was on. I was on sertraline, I was on alprazolam, and I don't remember what the third one was. But I am now off of all of those medications, which I find incredible that I was able to make that drastic of a change, especially when given a clinical diagnosis, all through the change of my diet.
That's crazy, Tom. Yeah, I think we try and overcomplicate things quite a lot nowadays. Like, but really coming back to those, like, I'm sure there's more, but like, you know, your diet, get that in check. Go to sleep at the right times. Like, that's what my I was in therapy for quite a long time, and like, he was like, just go to sleep, bro. Like, like, it's not going to solve everything, but you staying awake until 3 a.m. in the morning on social media, like, that's not helping. So just like, get your diet in check, go to sleep on time, move, and then, like, it's not going to solve everything, but it's going to solve so much.
It's going to help a lot. It's going to help 80% of things. Phone addiction is a huge issue. And it's something that a lot of people just are simply not aware of. And I think that that is pushed even further by the hyper use of social media, and then also where social media is going nowadays. In the past, I don't believe that there was such a, I guess you could say, focus on short form content. But now with these social media giants like TikTok coming out, where it's these 30-second videos that just keep you hyper stimulated by scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and laughing and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And then the next thing you know, 4 hours of time has gone by. That is what is really deep seating phone addiction. And quite frankly, it's something that I'm actually scared about for the future generation. Because I have younger cousins, I have people that I know that are in the 10 to 14 years of age, and they are glued to their phones. And when I say glued to their phones, I don't mean that they're spending an hour at a time on their phones. I mean, I could see my little cousin at a family gathering sit down on the couch and be on his phone from 12 o'clock when we finish lunch to 5 o'clock p.m. and not move a single muscle. And that is something that terrifies me.
Wow. And how do you manage your relationship with social media?
That's a great question. It's a bit hypocritical, right? I am someone who is active on social media. I am somebody that's on their phone rather frequently because I kind of have to be in order to grow like the social media presence, which I'm sure something that you can resonate with. But I always make sure to put in time blocks where I am specifically and completely disconnected from social media. There's one thing that I do every single Sunday, and I tweet it out every single Sunday. I do something called a digital detox, where I set myself a specific amount of time where I do not touch any sort of electronics besides my Apple Watch. It's the only one that I have on. I have all notifications off. And what I do is I go for walks. I cook. I clean. I exercise. I read. I meditate. I make sure I do whatever possible to stay off my phone so my brain doesn't constantly just associate happiness and regular everyday life with that device that is, quite frankly, glued to my hip.
Yeah, it's going to be a complicated relationship for going forwards as well. And full disclosure again, I'm starting a short form content agency, Tom. So I've actually talked about this in a couple of short form videos that I've made, is that I really want to help amplify the voice of authentic entrepreneurs because, well, social media is here and it's not going around. Short form's not going around either. And I do think that there's a way to navigate this world authentically. I know I'm going to push the boundaries a little bit and I'm going to realize that, oh, I've gone too far. But that TikTok algorithm, it's crazy how addictive it is. I went on TikTok once last year, lost 8 hours of my life. And I'm pretty mindful, but 8 hours were.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I mean, the whole app in and of itself is designed to keep you on there as long as possible. And I may have misspoke before, but I genuinely don't want to knock short form content. I think it's great. But I think that that people, like yourself, like me, we need to be mindful of the consumption of short form content, because then when your brain gets used to seeing only short form content and your brain gets used to only sitting with a thought or an idea for a 30-second to 1 minute interval, then that's going to rewire the synapses of your brain. Our brains are amazing at recognizing patterns. And when they recognize patterns, they want to stick to that pattern so it doesn't use more processing power, it doesn't use more calories in order to compute more things. And I don't understand the complete science and inner workings of all of that. But if you start to only consume, again, that short form media, that short form content, your attention span is going to shrink to absolute zero. You're never going to be able to focus. You're never going to be able to enter flow state. And that is going to be a very, very difficult thing to break.
Yeah. I think that it's very interesting that focus in itself is going to be one of the key defining factors that helps people either achieve their goals or not in 2023 and onwards. It always has been, but I feel like it's so important nowadays. and the bar is not high. Like, if you can focus like intensely on your work, something that I do struggle with as well, for 4 hours a day, like the amount of progress you can make is just astronomical. It's crazy.
I know it's absolutely incredible, and I focus on. I don't know if you're familiar with a gentleman called Andrew Huberman, but I would greatly recommend his work. You know, he's a phenomenal person and someone that I kind of modeled my social media career after. I say career as if I've been doing this for a long time, but deep work and focus can only be done for like at max 4 hours. And figuring out how to get into that flow state is like 3/4 of the battle. And I would argue, even though I have absolutely no clinical data to back this up, entering that state of hyper concentration has been getting more difficult for individuals, myself, as well as maybe even you included, because of that consumption of short form content. And I would love to hear your opinion on that as well.
Yeah, I feel it as well. It's incredibly hard to focus. Like, I have 13 tabs open right now, and I think I'm doing fantastic today. You know, it's just like, yeah, I was thinking about I'm currently doing a cold shower challenge, which has some
I
interesting
saw that.
benefits.
I saw. I was going to actually bring that up. Yeah, I want to hear about that.
Yeah, let's talk about it. But next year, I'm trying to do a challenge every month. And next month, my challenge is going to be the one tab challenge, in which I only use one internet tab for the whole month. And that one scares me more than the cold shower challenge, in all honesty. But
yeah, that sounds like a real challenge, man. Holy crap. You see all of these TikTok challenges where someone like does a dance and it's considered a challenge. Okay, I challenge you to only have one tab open on your computer for a month. People would crap their pants.
Yeah, it's scaring me. But hey, sometimes in life you need to set challenges that scare you, like having one internet browser.
Hey, I love it, man. I love it. Maybe I'll join in on that challenge too. Let me know when you're doing it, because I'm a psycho and I love doing things like that. Yeah, I think I might join you on that.
It's a big thing, man. Maybe considering if I'm easing my way into it, a 3-tab challenge, but I like the idea.
Well, I was going to say, do I have to do the 1-tab challenge at work? Because I'm afraid that I may get fired.
Yeah, it's a hard thing. We'll find a balance. But, yeah, but much less than the 32 tabs that I usually have open. Yeah, tell me about cold showers, because I honestly, I really enjoy Huberman. I listen to his podcast a lot. I do listen to a lot of health podcasts around every now and then, but I don't really know too much about cold showers, and I just signed up because I was challenged on Twitter. But I hear it's good for inflammation. Any other thoughts on cold showers?
Yeah, definitely, man. I don't have too deep of an understanding about cold showers, but I do understand that it's very anti-inflammatory, just because the cooling down of the body. So like, you know, when you injure something and you, like, again, bringing back that shoulder example, you ice it to bring down the inflammation because of the cold. So when you do that in a cold shower scenario, you're blasting your body with cold water. So you're not just focusing that cold on one area, you're doing it very systemically. So systemically, that's going to bring down inflammation. One thing that I find really interesting about cold showers, and I have to talk about a personal anecdote real quick. So there was a time when I was in college, and if my college roommates listen to this when I share it with them, they would be able to attest to this, where our shower in our apartment was broken. No hot water whatsoever, just ice cold, freezing water for 8 weeks in upstate New York. And in upstate New York, sometimes it could get down to like -10, -20 with wind chill. So we would get back from being freezing cold and walking back from the gym to jumping into our ice cold, freezing shower every single day. But the craziest thing was, during that 8-week period where our landlord just couldn't be bothered to fix our shower because he was too busy, apparently, I felt great. It was like it was like every time I took a cold shower, is like I drank 8 cups of coffee, right? And every time I jumped out of it, I felt like I was ready to tackle the world, and the days just felt easier because you had to get past that hardship of the cold shower, and then everything else felt easier. So I don't know if you experience the same thing, but it's almost as like I like to think of these things, and I used to play video games a lot, not so much now, but I like to think of things throughout my day as boss battles, right? And the biggest boss battle that I had to get through every single day was that cold shower. And then once I got past it, it was like everything else was easy.
Yeah. I do think there's a lot of benefit in just doing hard shit. I think many people
Absolutely,
talk
man.
about this a lot. I haven't found any of the inflammatory benefits or the energy or anything like that. I'm on day 5. So, I'll keep you posted on how it goes. I do like the fact that, doing hard things is incredibly important. Like you did wrestling, and I've done one wrestling practice in my life, and that was far physically harder than Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a beautiful sport, and it's the hardest activity that I've ever done. There's something about wrestling that is just, it's like a constant, like I'm going in this direction, and if you're in the way, you're getting out the way, or I'm pushing through it. It is, the intensity in wrestling is crazy. I should have done more cold showers back when I was doing jiu-jitsu a lot heavier, for sure.
So, one thing that I wanted to say, because I remember reading this not too far back, and I believe Joe Rogan may have actually talked about it on his podcast with somebody. There was research done about recovery from sport and recovery from weightlifting and the association with cold. There was 3 different camps within the study. There was the nocebo camp, so no cold showers or ice plunges, whatever you want to use as your cold source. There was one camp that did it after exercise, and there was another camp that did it before exercise. So they would jump in a freezing cold shower or in an ice plunge prior to them exercising. And believe it or not, they found that the group that was doing it prior to exercise had greater aerobic capacity during exercise, improved recovery after, and they even measured serum testosterone levels. And serum testosterone levels in the group that took cold showers and cold plunges before exercise increased exponentially. So there were people that had maybe like 400 or 500 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone. By the end of I don't remember the exact period, let's just call it 3 to 4 months, but I would have to fact check myself on that. By the end of that period, their nanograms per deciliter on testosterone went up like sometimes 150 nanograms, which is crazy.
It's a lot of nanograms, man. I'm writing that down before working out, man. I'm gonna try that before working out. I've always thought about.
Yeah, please let me know. Let me know, because I've really been thinking about giving it a shot myself, but I don't know if I can bring myself to do it. Like, I have a hard enough day as it is at work, and then I can't imagine after 12 or 13 hours of working, coming home, it's already hard enough to exercise after working that long. I couldn't imagine jumping into a freezing cold bathtub and then jumping into a workout after that. I'm all for doing hard shit, but that sounds near impossible for myself.
Yeah, let's work our way up. Let's just hope that no one challenges you on Twitter too.
Yeah,
I made a very
cold
bold
water
statement.
in my face.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Yeah, I made some statements saying that on Twitter, saying every successful entrepreneur does cold showers. Or something. I was just joking around or something, and they said, "Really?" Bet. I was like, "All right." So now here I am.
Oh
doing
no!
Cold showers, man.
Yeah, you really threw yourself into the fire, for lack of a better term, there, man. Jeez.
Oh, beautiful stuff. Oh, we should probably talk about content. Yeah, that
well, I
too.
guess this all gets intertwined with content, right? I mean, it's the stuff that you and I put out. It's the stuff that you and I talk about. And in and of a sense, and this kind of ties back to that Twitter space that I was on the other day, is that your content should be a subsection of your personality, if not just your personality in general. And that's just staying authentic. So all the stuff that I feel like you and I have been transacting on and speaking about right now is our content, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just, you talk about the things that you're passionate with, and you find the people. I don't know how this exactly works, but the magic of the internet, magic enables us to connect with like-minded people. And I think the more honest you are and more you talk about what you're passionate about, yeah, it's been a great journey so far. I've been on Twitter for like 2 months and already connected with people like you, people like Will, people who are just passionate about the same things that we are passionate about, and I'm really enjoying it, man.
Yeah, it's awesome. I would say the single best part about being on Twitter, regardless of the amount of followers that I've gained, regardless of the quick dopamine dumps that I've gotten from a thread performing really well, regardless of any of that, the single best part about this experience has been meeting like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
Being able to say that I have friends in other countries and feeling like I have such an expansive social circle now is something that I never thought that I'd be able to say. Like the fact that I'm speaking to you from New Zealand right now and having this phenomenal chat and podcast is just quite frankly mind blowing to me, right? And being able to talk to Will and being able to talk to all these people, there's someone from Twitter that I met when I first started that me and him really hit it off. We had very similar personalities, went through a lot of the same things, and now we're looking to form a business together. And that never would have happened if it wasn't for me just deciding one random day, hey, I'm going to create a Twitter account and then just going from there.
That it's an amazing thing. I think, yeah, there is some beauty to be made in social media. So it's not all negative for sure. And I found that Twitter is an
No,
incredibly healthy place. Yeah, I did not think, I heard many, many bad stories about all of you before joining Twitter. People saying that it's a place of hate, and everyone is, yeah, just, it's not a good place to be. But it could not be any further from the truth for the past 2 months. I, it's
Oh,
a beautiful
absolutely. And I
space, to
think that
be
it's really
honest, man.
important for the circles that you involve yourself with too, right? It's like everyone that I've reached out to and every person that's reached out to me are nothing but beaming versions of positivity, and they're trying to build this space, and they're trying to find your voice. And in and of a sense, even if we all have different content, we're all kind of trying to do the same thing, and that's be authentic, find ourselves, and document our life's journey on this crazy social media platform. So don't get me wrong, I definitely think there's toxic individuals that exist in Twitter. Well, I know for a fact that there are, but I would argue that Twitter is the single best platform to engage and connect with people on, because the Twitter platform in and of itself is built all around personalized engagement. Whereas you have things like Instagram, where everyone's just posting these photos of the best times of their lives, and they formulate this entire hypothesis around themselves that everything is perfect. On Twitter, people aren't afraid to share their highs. People aren't afraid to share their lows. And it's so much more personal engaging on Twitter. You can favorite it. You can retweet it to share with your audience. Instagram doesn't have anything like that. You would have to screenshot someone else's post and post it on your own page. Whereas I can take anything that you say, like I did earlier when you wrote that entire thread on the Twitter space, quote, retweet it onto my page, like, hey, check out my good friend Bronson. He creates awesome stuff. He just wrote an entire article on the Twitter space that I did, and he's a really good guy. Follow him, right? I don't think that there's any other social media platform that you can actually do that on.
Yeah, I think Twitter is incredibly unique in that aspect for sure. I wrote down here how you can share your highs and you can share your lows. And I think that was incredibly powerful. I was listening to your space the other day where you were talking about what was the main topic? I remember you sharing very vulnerable stories about where you were and where you are now and where you're going and all of the lessons that you've learned along the way. And yeah, like this is our first time meeting each other face to face here, but after listening to you talk, you and Nick, I believe it was, the,
Yes,
yeah,
Nick
when you
Sherwood.
share your
Yeah.
lows, it does incredibly accelerate this connection with other people online. What do you think about
Yeah,
how vulnerable shall we
I
be online,
completely agree with that.
or sharing your story online? What do you think about that? Because yeah,
I'm always a big proponent of leading with compassion and leading with who you actually are as a person. The lows of my life have probably transformed me more than any of the highest points in my life. And in order for me to be the most true and authentic version of myself, it's necessary for me to share those low points of my life. Just like I was talking about earlier, being clinically diagnosed with severe anxiety, being clinically diagnosed with severe depression. Those were some of the lowest points of my life, but they've shaped me now into the person that I am today. And I think that they're just as important, if not more important, than to share your highs. However, I think that every single person should weigh their own version of that. There's some people that want to be very private and they don't want to share things, and that's perfectly fine. There's other people that are like me that are very open and willing and transparent and willing to share it, and that's okay too. I think that it really just boils down to the individual, and there's never going to be a black and white scenario of, yeah, you can share all of this, but you can't share that. Oh, yeah, share this much, but don't share this much.
yeah. Alex Hormozy was talking about this the other day, how he is incredibly honest and transparent in the few pillars that he has decided to speak about. And then outside of those pillars, he just does not talk about them at all. And I think it's a pretty cool way of doing it, defining what you want to talk about and then just, yeah, sharing your story, the highs and the lows, and connecting with other people. I really do think that, like, when you share your lows, when I see them, I'm not judging you that like you went through these things. I feel more of a connection because, hey, like, I'm human. This is also a human behind the Twitter profile, and with now I know that we've had shared experiences. It really just builds that connection. It's a beautiful thing. I think there's a lot of power in vulnerability for sure.
Yeah, that was very eloquently said. I completely agree with you. I don't believe there's
Wow.
been a single situation where I've had people share something with me that was very personable that I felt like I was looking at them through a judgmental lens. If anything, anytime somebody shares something like that with me, I feel it through a lens of compassion and I feel closer to that person on a very human level, just like you said. Social media personalities, especially on Instagram, I would argue, always try to show this very glamorous lifestyle and picturesque lifestyle. And I think that that removes the very human aspect of human nature. Being able to be that transparent person and share those lows are going to let you connect with your audience so much more. And I wish that bigger personalities would take the approach of doing that to remove the stigma around exactly what we're talking about. Being open, honest, and transparent about the situations in your life that may not be, like they came out of a movie from Hollywood.
Yeah, I hope so too. And hopefully along our journey, we can continue to stay authentic to who we are. I know that I'm going to face moments where, yeah, I'm going to have to reflect on myself and figure out what I want to say and how much I want to share. But I think that we'll find our way along. Before we wrap up here, Tom, and it's been a beautiful conversation, and I've really enjoyed it. Um, what is
Agreed,
one
man. It's
thing
been
that
great.
you wish you knew? Thank you. I really appreciate that. What was I saying? What is one thing that you wish that you knew before you started your journey in social media?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. What's one thing that I wish that I knew? I would say that one thing that I really wish that I knew before I started social media was to not care about vanity metrics like followers. Probably for like the first month that I was on Twitter and I wasn't really seeing like crazy growth and success. I was still growing probably faster than a lot of people's accounts, but I didn't feel like I was growing at the tick that I did. I would wake up every single morning and I would look at that follower count. I'd be like, oh, I'm only at 500 followers. Oh, I'm only at 540. Then I'd look every single hour and be like, oh my God, I lost a follower. Who did I lose? Why did they stop following me? And I continually got into this negative feedback loop of why am I not doing this? Why am I not getting followers? Why am I not getting likes? And then I had a coming of being moment probably about a month ago where I was like, holy crap. Like these metrics don't matter. The amount of followers that I have doesn't measure the quality of the content that I'm putting out. The amount of followers that I have doesn't define my profile and my social media presence. I'm just going to keep producing the things that I want to post day in and day out. If people like it and resonate with it, they can stick around. If they don't, they're free to unfollow me too. And having that switch of mindset, I think actually made me even more successful and grow even more because I was no longer pulling my punches. I wasn't afraid to tweet about my views. I wasn't afraid to go up against maybe bigger accounts and post a dissenting opinion on. And that was the single biggest thing that I wish that I would have known. And I think that I would have gained back a lot of time and maybe even seen more growth in the process of just not really caring about what that number was at the end of the day.
Beautiful. Tom, thank you very much. That was a beautiful conversation. Before we go, would you be able to let people know where they can find you and what you talk about online?
Of course. Well, right now, the only presence that I currently have is at the Brain Battery on Twitter. However, I am also building out a newsletter called the Brain Battery Recharge. I have about 56 subscribers right now, which I'm extremely proud of. Shout out to all those people here, because I'm going to be putting the link to this podcast within that next version of the newsletter that I send out. So yeah, I am looking to eventually move on to another platform. I don't know what it's going to be yet. Maybe YouTube Shorts, maybe something like this in the podcasting format. I don't know where I'm headed yet, but find me on @thebrainbattery on Twitter and you'll find out.